Hello, welcome to another edition of Prove All Things. I want to thank everybody out there joining us today, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook, or on our CGI Digital Network app, whether that's on your phone, tablet, or television, or perhaps on the website you're watching as well. All the different places to watch or listen later. We glad to have you join us today. I'm joined from California with co-host Mike James. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, Jeff, good to be with you today. We're just 2 weeks from the end of the year, man. I can't believe it's gone
Yeah.
that fast.
We're getting close. I'm this coming weekend. I will be at the Winter Family Weekend in Lexington. I was looking at like what's the weather going to be like in Lexington when I go there, and it's going to be like 4 degrees, 4 degrees in Lexington with snow. I was like, I
Oh,
don't know if
man.
I don't I don't know if I'm going to go still, but that's just like wow. I got to really. I don't have the clothes for that, so I got to maybe like rethink about what if I have to go get a thicker coat or something coming up. But
That's
definitely looking
cold.
forward to
That's
this
cold
weekend.
anywhere, man. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
Wow. I didn't know it got that cold in Kentucky, man.
yeah. I think there's a cold front coming through. It's gonna be cold in Atlanta too, like in the teens this weekend.
Wow.
So we'll see how it
Yeah,
goes. See if the weather's right.
it's cold here in California. It's 54 today right now.
Ooh, chilly, chilly, chilly.
Yeah.
We're the long sleeve. So yeah, again, I want to thank everybody watching today. I do want to make an announcement. Our app has made a major update to version 6.0. If you're using it on your iPhone or on your Android, if you can't update your app to 6.0, what that will add a functionality where the search is a little easier to find. To be right there on the top of the in the app, and you can also sign in. You can create an account that will be linked to your app so that it will keep up with some of the videos you watch. So if you want to pick up later and watch, it'll keep all that stuff recorded for you, and you can take notes. And there's a lot of features there. Also in the app, there's a messaging feature which is right next to that. I've started one messaging area right now for prayer requests, so you can go there and you can join it, and you can just send prayer requests, and I'll get them and I'll share them with those in the Church of God, these prayer requests. So that's also available. There's so much functionality in the app that I just want to make sure everybody knows is out there and can take advantage of those things we have to offer there, as well as all the programming that we have there as well.
Great, great, great news.
Yeah, so it's definitely really good. All right, so we are now we are pre-recording this program. So if you're out there and you're wondering why we're not putting your uh, messages up from Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube today, is because this is a pre-recorded, and we're actually doing this a little bit earlier than normal. Like I think for right now is it's about what 6 a.m. out there in California for you, Mike. So that's
Yeah,
really dedicated to getting up that
yeah.
early for a podcast.
Yeah, I got up an hour early. I got up at 5, so I'm yeah, this is a different time for me to get up, but I used to get up a lot earlier when I was working for the government. I got up at 4 in the morning usually, so it's like old times again, Jeff.
Yep, yep. Sometimes you have to do that. And we are
Yeah.
joined today, and I'm going to bring him now with Mike's brother George James. How you doing, George?
All right. Good morning. Good morning, all.
Hey, could you
Hey,
remind everybody
George.
where you're from today?
I am here in Silver Spring, Maryland,
Hmm.
a little ways outside of Washington, D.C.
All right. Well, yeah. Thank you again for joining us today.
My pleasure.
It's definitely a pleasure. I guess last time, could you remind people, I guess, a little bit about your background and what we talked about last time before we
Sure.
get into today's subject?
Yeah, I have exercise science background and nutrition, and I was sharing last time with something regarding a golden nugget verse, as I like to call it.
Hmm.
And today we're going to start with another golden nugget verse. And last time we shared with Isaiah chapter 7, verse 15. We opened with that and we expanded from there, looking at also the Mosaic dietary laws as well. And we looked at the mind and behavior and how it relates to nutrition a little bit. So that was how we evolved and developed. And we had some great questions from both of you. And I think we had a really good time there discussing and sharing and really generating some great ideas and thoughts.
All right, wonderful. Wonderful. So yeah, I guess last time we went through uh, it was the nutritional aspect of,
Yeah.
and I think there's very much biblical basis in that.
Yes.
Uh, but what we eat is very very important to
Yeah.
to to our health.
Yeah. God cares about what we put in our bodies as well. That's why we have, Leviticus 11 and so forth.
Hmm.
And there's some other ideas as far as, we can also think about if Jesus Christ, if he were here right now with us, how would he eat? How would he conduct himself with
Hmm.
nutritional strategies? And that's a powerful question, a powerful thing to consider and to think about a little bit.
Yeah, I always wonder would if Jesus was alive today, would he be eating at McDonald's?
Yeah.
That'd be a bad example for everybody else, I would think, in a sense. So yeah. So what is today? What's today's scripture? I'll let you introduce it the way you introduce it. But so
Okay.
what is
Yeah.
today's emphasis that we're going to look at today?
So
Because you talked about, yeah. Go
we're gonna
ahead.
start with something with an exercise focus and another golden nugget kind of verse, a diamond in the rough, so to speak. 1 Timothy 4:8. I wanted to open with that and expand on some ideas from there. And you guys can chime in and ask some questions. And yes, we got it. We have it right here. The New American Standard Bible translation here. For bodily training is just slightly beneficial, but godliness is beneficial for all things, since it holds promise for the present life and also for the life to come. And Jeff and Mike, I want to just take note of, this isn't an exercise physiology book, of course. As we know, it's not a book on exercise and physical training.
Hmm.
But that verse there does say that, if we're moving, if we're doing something, there's some value to it. So we're physical beings right now, and
Hmm.
we want to take care of this temple that God gave us, right?
Right.
So
Now, I could take a skeptical point of view and say, well, it's not saying much value. So a lot of people would tend to to ignore that.
yeah,
Uh, like, well, I'll concentrate on the spiritual. I'll just eat, do whatever I want. But that's not the case, is it?
no, it's we're reminded this is a temple of the Holy Spirit.
Hmm.
So Jesus Christ did die for us. He does want us to prosper and be in the best of health that we can be. So how do we do that? There's golden nugget verses throughout this great collection of books called the Holy Bible that we can pick and study and choose and be like, wow, I didn't notice that before. The NIV also has it. We don't have to maybe open that up, but I think it has it for
Well, there it
physical
is.
training. Okay, that's perfect, Jeff. Thank you. For physical training is of some value. So getting a little more specific there with the
Hmm.
words.
Hmm.
But godliness has value for all things. So again, it has some value. The spirit is beyond
Hmm.
this realm, this time. But we're physical beings now. What do we do to consider that, take care of what we have received? And it's our job to do so, holding promise. So yeah, and the verse continues there a little bit, but
Okay, go ahead.
yes. So holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. That's the spiritual aspect there. But again, there is some benefit to taking care of this physical body. Do we
Hmm.
want to be in poor health for 70 or 80 years, or maybe
Hmm.
just 50 or 60 years? Because,
Right.
death can come to a much younger individual too, for whatever reason or
Hmm.
reasons.
Yeah,
So
I think that the healthier we are, the more we can do God's work.
Hmm.
If you
yes,
don't feel good, and you want to stay in the house all the time, that's not expanding the Bible. That's not, involving yourself with others to do good works and things of that nature. So they go hand in hand.
Yes, absolutely. So yes, we're, with this, again, this physical organism, that's what we are now. That's what we there's a human spirit, but this physical body, in a sense, it's God gives us this gift of life, this interesting, fascinating journey of human life. What do we do with it? How do we? There's lessons to be learned in a lot of different ways. I know that I've learned lessons, and I'm sure I'll learn some more, and I hope to learn more. I think that Herbert Armstrong said, I sometimes listen to his sermons on YouTube, and he was in his 90s at this time, and he's saying, I'm learning more now than I've ever learned. I'm still acquiring knowledge and understanding things I haven't understood before, which I thought was pretty powerful. So that's true in a lot of facets of life, and certainly, we all get older, but we have this physical body. We have these cells that are regenerating, these cells that are we have cells that die, then we have new cells that are forming.
Mm-hmm.
And the question for us, okay, what are we doing to help those cells thrive? So, and we could be 91 years of age,
Mm-hmm.
but we're still in a process of rebuilding new cells. The process may be slower,
Mm-hmm.
but we're still in that. We're still alive. We're still rebuilding something.
Okay.
So it's a powerful thing to think and consider. And we have examples of people in their 80s and sometimes 90s that are still very active in doing things and still perhaps promoting God's great way of life and that way of give and that way of love. So, which is a powerful testimony.
Yeah. So and again, I think that's good theoretically, and the body's important. But I do know I'm in God's church, and I know God's church kind of reflects our society. And in our country, United States, I think 40% of the people, and this tends to be mostly people who are older, are overweight or obese. Like that's a lot of people, and that's even in God's church. So what's the advice, or what can be done for those in God's church now, that, hey, you find yourself 60, overweight, in bad health, like what are some things that can be done to like turn that around?
Yeah, great question there. And number one, if you're in that position, take a step back and start with small steps. I would advise first, look at your dietary approach. Look at your dietary approach. What are you doing there? And what needs to change? Realize this. All of us, even from age 20 to 30, and 30 is still quite young, our metabolism changes.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it changes because of food intolerances that have developed for a genetic reason. And sometimes we lack the activity that coincides with our dietary strategy. So maybe in some cases, cut back on portion sizes, alter portion sizes. A good rule, a good dinner would be this, and this is something people can just take a note of here. If you focus on your vegetables, number one. Number two, a quality protein source. And number three, some type of carbohydrate, maybe brown rice or a sweet potato. Mm-hmm. I say the carb last because you're already kind of full. And if you're not very active, you don't need as many carbohydrates. Consider your activity, consider your physical activity. If you're more active, if you're running marathons, for goodness sakes, you're going to need more carbohydrate.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not, slow down on that great fuel that God gave us, which is the potatoes, the rice, the breads. Slow down on that. And the quality of the choices is very important too. So try to focus on veggies, number one, protein, number two, the carbohydrate, number three. Think also about your water intake. Digestive enzymes function best in a watery environment.
Mm-hmm.
So water will help the digestive process. It helps elimination. It helps remove toxins from the body. Keep that in mind as well. So a couple simple guidelines there that can be helpful. Everyone's a little bit different in their approach, but activity. What are you doing from an exercise standpoint?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I know people have different things, and there's like fad diets, and I was talking with a relative, and they were saying, and this is not just not a relative, but a person in the family that's kind of related, whatever. And they were talking about how their brother was now eating an all like beef diet, and to me, yeah, it's like
That's it.
they're beef. That's
That
it.
was a
Beef, maybe some cheese. And that's all they're eating is beef and cheese. Now they've lost a lot of weight, but to me that sounds like that could be dangerous or problematic if all you eat was beef.
Yeah,
But again, the results were that hey, this person lost a lot of weight.
right.
So I'm trying to figure out, is there a balance for those kind of things when people do that? People do those extreme things in order to lose weight.
Yeah, great and interesting point there, Jeff. Here's one thing that I would say about that. A couple things, actually. I have heard a doctor say, my goal is to help this person lose weight quickly. Whatever I can do right now, I'm okay with.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that being said,
Mm-hmm.
there's another side to that. There are some things that are not sustainable, meaning that you're not getting all the quality nutrients the body needs. So it's good they lost weight. That's better for the systems, better for the joints, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
However, without greens in the diet, you're lacking calcium, magnesium, two
Mm-hmm.
critical minerals.
Right.
You're also lacking vitamin A, vitamin C, two critical vitamins.
Mm-hmm.
Now, red beef or red meat, grass-fed beef, does have B12, very quality protein source, which helps rebuild the body.
Mm-hmm.
And it could have some iron as well. B12, iron, great protein source. So some good nutrients there. Maybe some omega-3, if it's a high-quality grass-fed beef. Omega-3 helps regulate metabolism, helps brain and heart health, helps reduce inflammation in the body. But that alone, I'm okay with losing weight quickly if you're very overweight.
Mm-hmm.
But there's many things that are not, you can sustain certain things for a long period of time from a nutrition and health standpoint. But it is
when you
good
say a
that-
long period of time,
Yeah.
what are we talking about? Like when you go on these fad
Yeah.
diets, what's a time frame in which to test that and do that before you want to get back to some equilibrium?
That's a great question, Mike. The time frame can depend on the person, how much weight was lost, and also how does the person feel.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to be different in this approach. If you're feeling pretty good, that's a sign that what you're doing, you're on the right track. Let me get it.
Mm-hmm.
So the time frame could be several months, 6 months, maybe less, 3 to 6 months, something like that, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But how does the person feel? How's the energy level? If you're starting to get like this all the time, something's not quite right, because what we put in our bodies should be like a medicine for us, should be life-giving for the organism. So it could vary, but how, I think the key question is, again, what is the individual feeling? How are they doing from an energy standpoint? So that would be the key, one of the key items there.
Okay. Yeah, just curious to that because I heard that, and there are people who struggle and they're trying to figure out what they can do. And again, I guess there is that there's less than that. There's like the caveman diets that people like. I'm only going to eat like a caveman ate or whatever, or the definitely the low carb. I know a low carb diet will lose weight pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So in different things, but they seem that what I just noticed is usually people they go in those diets and they end up gaining more later on.
That's true, Jeff.
When they leave it.
That's exactly right. So that the key is you lose that weight, you have to maintain certain changes. You can't go back to what you were doing previously. And that's part of the problem too. So yes, it's great to lose weight. And sometimes losing weight too quickly, that can be hazardous too, in the sense that muscle loss can happen. If muscle loss happens, we're never healthier. So can you regain that muscle? Yes, but you have to be, it's a very delicate balance.
Yeah. Speaking of delicate balance, I'm just made me think of something else. We had a sermon that was given in Atlanta by Mr. Jim Eason, who is a local elder at another church, and he came and he gave it was basically about our spiritual training. But the example he gave was, first, physically, is that like a third of most older people die because they fall down. Because they end up falling. And I think his dad had fallen. I think even Mr. Ron Dart had fallen and lost some things. So a lot of people, when they get older, they end up falling. And I think I heard somewhere that they can predict, how long you'll live by a simple test. Can you stand on one foot? Can you stand on one foot for like 10 seconds? If you can't, stand on one foot for 10 seconds, there's a good chance that you may not make it in the next 10 years because your balance, you could fall and something could happen. So I guess that's the strength training aspect of it. As people get older, how do we prevent falls and those type of things when people get in their 60s, especially 70s, 80s, and so forth?
Yes, and most osteoporosis cases are women because of the various hormone the various hormone levels. Women have less testosterone than men, which makes them more susceptible. So keep those bones strong. And that's interesting, Jeff. I want to go a little bit further with that. In my college days, I learned that the most important form of exercise was some type of aerobic exercise, aerobic endurance exercise, and the strength training was not as critical, not as important. Later, it became more evident that as we age, what's more important for a 70, 80, or 90-year-old person? How about the strength to get up out of a chair and walk around the kitchen so they're able to eat and feed themselves? What's more important then? Is it running 6 miles outside? I don't think so. The bone density too, very critical to maintain that strength, and weight-bearing exercises is number one for that maintenance and that strength. So one leg balance exercise. Keep that in mind for older adults. One leg balance exercise, practice that daily. Even ourselves, we can practice that. Nothing wrong with that. I have a BOSU. I'll do squats with a kettlebell on top of a BOSU sometimes, just for the extra balance challenge. So, yes, very, very interesting point there.
Okay.
So what do you suggest? I know you've done some training with older folks, George. What kind of exercises do you have them do?
Okay. I will do a balance, like a tightrope walk on the floor. I either have tape or I have an agility ladder built into the floor, and they're walking on a line on the floor. And when they step, the heel touches the toe. The heel touches the toe. And then they go backwards if they can. Then the toes touch the heel. And they try to maintain that straight line. Not that easy to do. That's one critical exercise. The one leg balance that I just mentioned there also. Additionally, I have...
When you say one leg balance, I get one leg. Do you then, what do you do with the other leg? Does it matter, or just lift it off the floor?
You just lift it up off the floor, and you try to brace that side to get stronger. You just try to hold that spot in place. You can have one, the other foot's off the floor. It could be slightly behind you or slightly in front of you. And you can have something to hold on to or something to grab if you need to. That's very close.
Yeah.
So
But you're
additionally,
saying just like pick it up and going 1 foot in front of the other, but one off the ground is what it is.
okay, hold on a second. So
Yeah.
there was two separate exercises there.
Okay. Okay.
One was the tightrope walk, where you're walking on that
Okay.
imaginary line.
Gotcha.
And that's forwards and backwards. Very good also for the nervous system and body awareness. So that's the heel. You try to have the heel touch the toes as you're going forward, and then as you're going backwards, the toes touch the heels coming back.
Mm-hmm.
The one leg balance is a separate exercise now.
Okay. Okay.
And that could be done in different ways. Foot in front, high knee position for additional challenge. So foot behind you, you want to make sure you get both sides in there, even if one side is much stronger than the other. Do both sides. Very important. Also, there was a study recently that looked at the ability to refrain from osteoporosis by keeping the hips strong. And one leg balance was one recommendation that was made that would be helpful in this process. I also have rocker or wobble boards. I'm not sure if you guys know what those are, but those are boards you get. I have one in the basement, and maybe I have one rocker, one wobble. But you go in a circle and you balance like you're on a surfboard, but not as extreme, of course. And then the rocker board, you're up there and you rock back and forth. You walk and you rock front and back. So this is also some balance, body control. Can you keep that balance in position without falling or slipping? So that's a third category now, a third item. So these are all exercises, Mike, that I've used. And then additionally, we can get into some type of lightweight training and build that weight training in an intelligent manner, gradually progressing as needed. And the exercises may vary on the range of motion ability. I probably won't have anyone in their 80s. I do train someone, an older woman in her 80s. We'd never do a full squat. We probably never will, I would say. She does some leg press. She does a partial deadlift that doesn't hurt her back or hurt her knees or joints. So and that's a weight that's convenient for her. But I want to keep that spine strong, that pelvic region, that spine region, very key to beat osteopenia and refrain from osteoporosis. So keeping those bones strong, very, very key. So some free weight training as well can be mixed in there too. Walking on a treadmill, forward, at an incline, sideways and backwards. But when you're going backwards and sideways, it has to be a slow speed, though. For that goes for anyone at that point. Right?
Yeah, I bet.
Those are some good options
especially,
there that I've used.
Especially with older folks, man. Yeah, that's yeah.
There's something, guys, I wanted to go ahead.
Where do you want to go, George? Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to share something too. I have a couple additional notes here around me. We talked about 1 Timothy 4:8. We talked about exercise, and as I mentioned, this right here is not a physical training book. It has some awesome points about a lot of different things, but it does mention 1 Timothy 4:8 as we read earlier. So let's think about this. So we exercise. The Bible says it has some value. So what kind of value are we talking about here? So here's something here. We exercise. What happens? What's one of the things that happens? We sweat, right? We perspire. And what happens when we perspire? So let's think about that a little bit.
Toxins out.
Yes.
Yeah, we smell bad.
In fact, yes, I wanted to share a few names here for you, and some of these you may not be familiar with. But when we sweat, that's the lymphatic system, one of our 11 bodily systems, going into action. Okay, so we're sweating. We rid the body of toxins, such as various pollutants, such as DDT, DDE, pesticides. This has been found in, check this out. This might sound a little disgusting, I'm sorry, but there have been studies on human sweat samples. And what did they find in these samples? Check. So this is interesting. So the pesticides, as I mentioned, additionally, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, but phthalate, it's spelled this way: PHTHALATE. So this is found in plastic products, and it's also a toxic chemical. But we have found it in our human sweat samples. So we accumulate these things from the environment, from things maybe we eat or drink, things get into our food supply. So we got these toxins, but when we sweat, we're cleansing the body. We're getting rid of things. Some people.
So let me ask you a question. Okay, so sweating and exercise. What about going to a sauna? Because I know in a sauna people sweat also.
They do, and Jeff, that is okay.
Okay,
that is fine.
All right,
you can go to a sauna, and that's going to be helpful too. It will be helpful as well. You're sweating, you're getting rid of things.
Okay.
Now exercise will increase bone density, will increase the strength of the skeletal muscle tissues and connective tissue as well. So we have that component. But yes, if someone wants to just go to the sauna, sweat things out, that's a great strategy too. I'm all for it. So hydrate though too, just in case. Just be aware you're going to get very, very thirsty, like you would when you exercise. So hydration very key to replenish the body, but that is a good strategy. A sauna is a fine strategy as well. Now, let me share this with you guys as well. This is interesting. So we had the pandemic, and COVID, I think, will be with us to stay. But 2020, we started this pandemic worldwide.
Yes.
Some of the articles I was reading, and probably I read these articles more so than most, just because I'm focused in on this area,
right,
a little bit more. So some articles that were coming out was on the lymphatic system, and also cleansing the body, and through exercise we can combat viral infection. We can combat colds and flus to a certain point. We can also get run down too.
Okay.
And go ahead.
I have a question. Okay, because I at a point, it wasn't COVID, but it was probably flu or whatever. For about a month, I had for a whole month, I had like congestion, and I had bronchitis and cough and all that. And during that time, I did not exercise, because I've always heard that I didn't do my normal exercise. I mean, I did some activity, because that if you have something below your throat, it's probably not a good idea to exercise. But if it's above, it's okay to exercise. Do you have any thoughts about that? I mean, if I have bronchitis, if I have is it okay to exercise, or what should you do with those when you're having those things?
I like that question.
Yeah.
Here's what I'd say.
Okay.
What the little thing you mentioned there, above and below, I'm okay with that. If it is a flu, I would not exercise.
Okay.
If it is COVID, a virus like that, I would not exercise.
Okay.
If it is a cold, you probably can get away with some exercise.
Okay.
I have a cold right now, a little bit. I have some congestion. I have been exercising. It has made me feel good. I do know at the end of the day, I am very, very tired though. But a viral infection can knock you out. I'm exaggerating there to this point. In the sense that you're going to be drained tremendously. Most colds, you can probably get some exercise, maybe get an extra hoodie on or something, sweat it out more. So I would say it's probably fine for some exercise. You may want to do a little bit less though. You may want to do a little bit less. But I think that's probably a good rule of thumb. A viral infection, avoid it, because you probably have some body aches too with a viral infection as well.
Yeah.
And the body is fighting so hard to combat a certain virus. Or a cold, that can be like a virus too, but a smaller scale, where we don't feel as body is as punished. Maybe we don't have the aches we may have with the flu or something like that. So I think some exercise is fine to a certain point.
Yeah.
And it can be helpful. Sometimes I've had colds and I've exercised and felt better. Why? Circulation,
Mhm. Yeah.
blood flow. Things are the lymph, and the blood flow through the body is helping me, helping to get rid of more toxins from the body.
Mhm.
So I think that yes to your question, some exercise is okay.
Yeah.
But sometimes exercise, you just want to cut everything off.
Yeah.
Just
For me, and again, it was a few months ago, and I
Yeah.
noticed that because I had not exercised for like a month because I
Yeah.
had the whole month it was either strep throat or flu because our
Yeah.
kids were bringing stuff in and everybody was completely sick for about a month.
Sure.
That after a month, that my heart rate was higher and then my blood pressure was up. You know, because normally I
Okay.
keep my blood pressure down and my heart rate down by exercising, but that that I lost that and had to get it back.
Sure.
Getting back to exercise, but I guess sometimes you just can't really exercise through
Yeah.
those viruses, unfortunately.
I would say yes. Sometimes you can't do it, Jeff. And
Yeah.
let me show you guys a little depiction here. This is just maybe for the viewers later, and hopefully you can see this okay. I'm going to show you two pictures. This is one picture here, and
Mhm.
that kind of represents the lymph flow through the body right there. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And this lymph, it helps as it's moving through the body, it helps gets rid of dead cells, it gets rid of toxins, it helps fight infections. So it's part and parcel with the immune system. And
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes we don't hear immune system so much anymore in our sources that we look at, but rather we see the lymphatic system, which is pretty much, it's the same thing as the immune system in essence.
So when we hear lymph nodes, George, these are different points throughout the body that these things are moving through and within to get stuff out, or how does it work?
The nodes, Mike. Now this chart here, it's not easy to see, but this depicts some lymph vessels as well as lymph nodes, and it's not easy to see. I understand that, but you might, like up here, we have we have lymph nodes in the chest cavity here. We have some maybe in the neck region.
Mm-hmm.
This is our thoracic cavity right here where my hands are going up and down my fingers. So we have these nodes, Mike, and one thing that happened to me before, kind of going along with what Jeff shared, these are areas that help push the fluid through. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing. Do you ever get sick and you had like a lump accumulate somewhere? It's happened to me before.
That's what a lot of times the doctors will check and see if your lymph nodes are swollen because that shows that you're fighting an infection.
George, when I ate hot peppers once, I had my whole neck coming out. What was that?
Wow. Just now, here's the thing: was that the effect that you were sick, or that was you took the peppers because you were sick, or
No, I was just eating real hot peppers in Arizona once. Yeah.
Okay,
wow. I looked like a frog.
Yeah.
That sounds like an allergic reaction.
Yeah.
Okay. I had interesting experience with the pepper too, but maybe not that extreme.
Yeah.
But let me just go back real quickly too. Mm-hmm. Just as you were saying, Jeff, we have these things here and our body is fighting. And what's happening is there's a fight going on with a viral infection, for example. And the fluid is not passing as readily or as easily because the virus is doing battle with the body and the body is trying to fight back with the lymph system. And we get these infections. We get these protrusions sometimes.
So is it like inflammation then?
Yeah, Mike, I would say we could say it like inflammation in a sense. Yes, but the body is, and of course with inflammation, the body's trying to heal. The body's trying to fight back in some way. And we don't want that to be inflamed forever, but that's an example of that battle that's happening with our immune system and this virus that's in us. Mm-hmm. And as Jeff was saying, sometimes our doctors, they take a look, they feel, and they see what they may find there at different, and we can find this not just in this region, but it could be in other regions of the body as well. Mm-hmm. But going back to Mike about the pepper, I ate a pepper. It was so hot. My eyes began to run. I think that my mouth got watery. I think my nose was running too. I was standing up. I was walking around real quickly. I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? But this pepper just, I was okay after a few minutes, but it just cleared up my system. But it was so strong, so extreme. It was like, I forget what kind of pepper it was, but it was like, so I didn't have the vet thing, but I did have, my eyes were like, I was crying almost.
Yeah,
I was basically crying actually.
I don't understand that stuff. It was a few weeks ago. We took our kids to a candy store, and then the cousin was there. So their cousin was at the candy store, and he bought this gummy. It said the world's hottest gummy. It was like coated with ghost peppers or whatever. And so we didn't know what he bought. It's like, everybody just get your candy, and he buys this candy or whatever. And then he touches his face, his eyes, after he was like just holding it. His eyes are all burning and stuff.
Wow.
And I was like, well, you don't need to eat that. You don't need to eat that. Just show people what it is. Keep it in the box. And he goes back home, and his dad calls us mad because he had eaten it, and he felt like and his stomach was so upset. He was burning so much with that pepper. So that's when I think of peppers. I was like, for most part, I try to avoid them.
I understand. Yeah. Just a couple other things. I'll just share a little bit more. We were kind of going with those, like we mentioned the toxins earlier with the perspiration, the sweating. Another, I mentioned the item found in the plastic containers and things. There's also heavy metals like aluminum. Aluminum has been found in sweat samples of human beings. Aluminum, there's speculation here, it's theorized that there's a link with Alzheimer's disease. So interesting.
Well, how are we getting aluminum into our body? I mean, I can see plastics, but
aluminum can be found, Mike, in some type of sometimes in shampoos or deodorants.
Okay.
So some of the products that we use for bathing or hygiene, not all, but some of them have aluminum. I would say try to avoid aluminum if you can. Now, our body is able, we have a metabolic system. We're able to metabolize, and our bodies are always able to get rid of certain things and filter things out, but sometimes we can't. Sometimes we have overload. So, and that's a genetic point there, as well as, again, activity, movement, exercise. With movement, there's flow in the body. There's healing in the body with movement.
I just looked it up real quickly to see, aluminum has to get in, and from one statement I read right here is that people who may live near chemical factories, it may be in the air. That fireworks, if you shoot off fireworks have aluminum in them, and so you breathe in that air. You probably breathe in smoke from fireworks, that you can breathe in aluminum that way.
Yes.
So those are
our
things to think about
too, for sure.
Yeah.
Our environment, and so good, very good points there. So there's several different ways there that we can find aluminum. There's another item here, BPA. Watch out for BPA in a food label, bisphenol A or BPA. So that has been found in sweat samples, and that is also a toxin too, found in canned foods, as well as, again, the plastic bottles or plastic containers of some type as well. The bisphenol A, so that's another one there too. And one other thing I want to mention too. So we alleviate ourselves. We go to the bathroom. We urinate. And so forth. And we have found toxins too in our urine. However, it seems like, according to some of the research I've been looking at or have cited here, it's better to sweat it out. We find greater amounts of toxins in our sweat than in our urine. So we can go to the bathroom and rid the body of toxins that way, which is a good thing. It's a very important and good thing to do. But when we're moving, we perspire, we sweat. That's even better. It seems like that's even better to rid the body of garbage. So keep that in mind for all of us.
So that's a really good benefit of exercise.
Yes.
All right.
That perspiration, ridding the body of toxins, as well as the cardiovascular benefit, the skeletal muscle tissue benefit, the tendons and ligaments, the skeletal structure, getting those areas stronger for a healthier organism, a stronger organism.
What
Those
about
are also important benefits too?
I hear all that. I agree with all that. Something that I've gained from exercise has been discipline, mental discipline. Subjecting my body on a regular basis has made it easier for me to subject my mind. Does that make sense, George? Do you get what I'm saying?
I do, Mike, and I think that's a great point because yes, we go to work. You guys do this show. That's discipline. And our dietary patterns, discipline. There's a discipline aspect to virtually everything, and exercise helps with that. Physical training helps with that.
A spiritual fruit of the spirit. The fruit of the spirit is self-control, right? So that's spiritual. So really, there's a spiritual aspect to exercise.
Yeah, I like that, Jeff. Yes.
Yeah.
And think about Paul's analogy of running the race. Paul's analogy running the race to we're in this race. We're in this race together. We're running. And we want to finish our race. And it takes discipline. It takes effort. It takes time.
Right.
And we have to be our healthiest spiritually, physically, emotionally to be able to do it.
So when you talk exercise, George, again, let's talk about someone from their 20s to their 60s.
Okay.
You would agree that exercise would include aerobic and anaerobic, and can you explain the difference?
Yes. So the aerobic exercise, or maybe aerobic endurance, that is with oxygen. Okay. That is generally, we're talking about a longer duration. Aerobic training, aerobic endurance. Let's say we're training for a 10K or 6.2 mile event. There's a lot of aerobic training going into that. We're jogging, we're running, we're using oxygen as a fuel in essence. So oxygen is a requirement for this activity. Maybe a swim or a bike ride. Oxygen accumulation. Now, if we're talking about something anaerobic, now this is a more extreme, maybe extreme isn't the best word, but a foundational perspective here.
Okay.
It would be more geared towards that exercise or activity without oxygen, anaerobic.
Okay.
So let's say we're lifting a bench press one time, very little oxygen accumulation, but a great skeletal muscle effort there. And both are important. Both are important because lean tissue, building muscle, helps increase metabolic rate, probably better than anything else. Because you add muscle tissue, the foods we take in are used to support and energize and feed that additional muscle. So we want to try to maintain our muscle, and maybe it's hard to do as we get older, but we can still maintain, we can still have some muscle as we get older. Diet becomes very, very important, and the quality of protein becomes very important in that regard too. But we must continue to exercise and do what we can too as part of that. Of course, with age, things change. Now, Mike, let me go a little further with your question there. We have this aerobic exercise, which is considered to be the oxidative energy system, okay? And we have the other side, which is that anaerobic, which requires little oxygen, but it's a very big effort. Then we have something also in the middle. So we have the creatine phosphate energy system, which is very short duration, high intensity. The oxidative, long duration, but maybe lower intensity. So things in the middle. Galactic energy system, which extracts from both ends, both sides of the spectrum, and something that's more middle of the road.
So what's an exercise for that?
Okay.
Examples.
So some examples would be, so let's take like a running event would be like an 800-meter running event.
Okay.
So a couple minutes of intense activity, then you take a break. So maybe it could be a circuit workout, a circuit training workout, which consists of some maybe 3 to 5 minutes of aerobic work, a strength training exercise, an abdominal exercise, and maybe a balance exercise. Then you go back to maybe aerobic, a little bit of strength, another core exercise. So it's a mixture of a lot of different things that not very long, but the intensity is very high, and you get very little rest in between. So that could be like an example, kind of a workout for that. 800-meter run, though, would be like a workout or like an event example on that. Like 3-minute boxing rounds, that would be an example of that too. So both types of muscle fibers are displayed too, a little bit of fast and a little bit of slow. And we want to try to get all fiber types involved to build the best and most resilient body that we can. The slow, the fast, and the kind of like the both characteristics, the fast and the slow, involved too. So we have type 1 fibers, slow fibers, type 2B, super fast, and the type 2A, which has characteristics of slow and fast. So they can do a little bit of both as far as their capacity. Now we can train those fibers. We can be better at anything we want to be better at to some degree. There's also that God-given component. We can only
we're not all going to be Michael Jordans or Bruce Jenners.
Exactly right. We're not all going to be elite athletes, but whatever we want to be, however we want to improve, we can improve to some extent. And we can, and seeing that as a trainer, as a fitness enthusiast, when you guys do your workouts, do you see yourself getting a little better, or do you see yourself maintaining? And maintaining is good. Maintaining is important. But that's a beautiful thing and a powerful thing to see for anyone to think, hey, I got a little bit better. That makes me feel great. Praise God, amen, you know? Yeah, we're not all going to be elite that's for sure. There's, like, when we, in the finals of the 100 meters in the Olympic Games, like those guys and gals, they've got like 80, 90% fast twitch fibers there. You know, and so when you come to that level, it's like it's mostly like type 2B, like super fast fibers at that point. Mostly, everyone has a little bit of everything, but yeah, you've got to be. It has to be like there's a God-given genetic component there too. But we can all get better than where we are currently, fitness wise, athletically speaking. You know, and that's a fun thing. That's a fun part of the journey of life too, I think, is being a human being. So.
Okay. Any final points that you wanted to get in today, George? Anything you haven't addressed?
Mike, I don't think so. I wanted to share a little bit about the wet sweating, the toxins that have been found in research studies with sweat samples. And I showed the diagram I wanted to share. I wanted to share that too. I think that was pretty much the extent of what I wanted to share, but this has been really
well. I have a question for you. Like, what about like exercise and mental health? Because I know that usually when after I exercise, I feel better.
Yes.
And do you think is there what do you know about that as far as our mental health and exercise?
I do think there's a connection there, because it's like sometimes there's this energy that must be unleashed. Interestingly, there's also there have been studies with the lymph system also affecting the nervous system. I made a couple of notes of this too, and this kind of brought me to something else that I actually forgot. So there can be an effect on the brain, because the brain actually can get toxins built up in it too, that can cause Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I'm going to get just a little bit technical here, but these things affect the brain, and this is an accumulation of some of the things we spoke about earlier, toxins of various sorts that affect the brain. Alpha synuclein alpha synuclein, and as well as beta amyloid. And it has been found, Jeff and Mike, with exercise, with movement, the lymph system helps release this from the brain as well.
Interesting.
These items, which can cause some debilitating diseases as well for the brain.
Yeah.
So good question there, Jeff. Yes, I would say I would agree to that there's a mental component there too. And the lymph system does help relieve the brain of those two very unusual names I just mentioned to you right there. And another important point too, a lot of this happens sleep. Sleep is very helpful. You get better sleep too. The lymph system works very, very well during sleep too.
I can tell you,
And water.
since I began working for the church and I work from home now, I get 7 to 8 hours of sleep rather than I was averaging 5 when I worked for the government, had to get up at 4 in the morning. I'll tell you, I don't have any moments during the afternoon now where I'm nodding off. And I'll tell you, I feel so much better in general throughout the day. There was a time when I didn't get enough sleep, and there was during the afternoon, I just wasn't quite there.
And your body's telling you something.
Yeah, exactly. And so I know sleep matters, and it's important for us. Yeah.
I heard someone say once, sleep is the most anabolic thing we can do, and it's free. It's free.
Yeah.
And the body heals. It heals with sleep.
I think about a third of people, U.S. adults, don't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
They get less than the recommended sleep.
I would agree.
And so I think, if you're thinking about, and also when you get back to COVID and flus and viruses and stuff like that, I know when I saw some studies also that directly related your ability to fight infection with how much sleep you get. That they actually did a study with some young people, and they kept them up, and then they had some other people who slept, and the people that they kept up, they injected with a cold virus, and they gave it to the people who slept, and the people who did not get sleep, they did far worse with that cold virus than the people who had slept. And that's me summarizing a more complicated study, but that's the general, what I got out of it is that sleep supported to fighting, disease and whatnot. And I saw a doctor on YouTube, again, doctor on YouTube, in quotes, but he was basically saying, before this, that, hey, if you want to be ready for infections, for viruses, get sleep. That's so important. And I guess exercise leads to that, I guess the proper sleep.
Yes.
But I think it is like as you think about it, it is a spiritual thing as well, because God didn't call us to be lazy Christians. I say that a lot. Being a Christian is not being lazy. It's not just a lot of people say, oh, I accept Christ and I can go do what I want, eat what I want, live how I want. But Jesus is there as just covers me as I do all these bad things. I don't think that's correct. I think God.
Yeah, you show your faith through your works. You got to do something on the other end of this. You got to show your obedience. The fact that you want to be like Christ. There's something to do. Yeah.
Great point.
And spiritually, the only thing we can do to show our spirituality is physical. Right, and it comes across. There's a connection. You can't just be I'm spiritually great and I'm awful physically. I think there's a connection there that's very important. All right, anything else you wanna leave us with, Jordan, before we end today?
I think that is all. But it's been great. I've really enjoyed this. You guys, great questions to generate some good, interesting discussion there, and it's been a great time.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. And next week, I guess we'll have who we have on is Alan Wolfkill.
Alan's going to be on. He's not going to be dealing with the American Indian conversations we've had because he's got a lot of experience in drug and alcohol counseling. So we're going to go in that direction with him.
All right,
Maggie. Okay.
All right. Bring the dog
Maggie.
on. All right. All right, well, so we're going to say goodbye to everyone. And again, let everybody know this is a pre-recorded show. So if we didn't put your comments up there, it's because we're pre-recorded today. But definitely we'll look at your comments later. So thank you, and
All right.
see you again next time on Prove All
All right,
Things.
guys, take care. Be
Bye-bye.
peace. Be well.
Okay. Thanks.